On July 13, 2014, an ordinary pickup truck sat parked in a quiet Massachusetts parking lot. Inside was an 18-year-old boy, Conrad Roy III. Hours later, he was gone. What at first seemed like another tragic case of depression would unravel into one of the most shocking legal battles in American history. Because Conrad did not die alone. His death was pushed, encouraged, and manipulated through text messages. And at the center of it all was Michelle Carter, a teenage girl whose phone became a weapon. Conrad Roy III was no stranger to struggle. Intelligent and sensitive, he had dreams of studying marine salvage and had even earned a captain's license. But beneath his quiet smile, Conrad wrestled with anxiety and depression, a shadow that followed him throughout his teenage years. In his journals and videos, he spoke about feeling trapped, longing for peace, but battling his own thoughts daily. He had attempted suicide before, but survived. To the outside world, Conrad was a normal teenager. But inside, he was losing a war that few could see. Michelle Carter met Conrad in 2012 during family vacations. They didn't live in the same town, but they began a relationship, one that existed almost entirely through text messages, emails, and phone calls. To the world, Michelle was a bubbly, outgoing cheerleader, but in reality, she too struggled with loneliness, an eating disorder, and a desperate hunger for attention and validation. She often inserted herself into other people's tragedies, seeking sympathy, positioning herself as the grieving heroine. This hunger for recognition would become key in understanding what came next. As Conrad's depression deepened, Michelle's texts began to shift. At first, she encouraged him to seek help, but soon, her tone changed, pushing him, urging him, almost daring him to end his life. The messages are chilling to read. "You just need to do it, Conrad," she wrote. "The more you push it off, the more it will eat at you. You're just making it harder for yourself." She painted suicide not as a tragedy, but as a solution, telling him that everyone would understand, that his pain would finally end. Michelle was no longer his lifeline. She became the voice that pulled him toward the edge. On July 12, 2014, Conrad told Michelle he planned to end his life the next day. Michelle didn't try to stop him. Instead, she helped him plan it. She suggested the method. She reassured him that it was the right choice. That night, Conrad drove to a Kmart parking lot in Fairhaven, Massachusetts. He sat inside his truck as carbon monoxide filled the cabin. When Conrad stepped out, overcome by fear, Michelle told him to get back in. Those words, spoken over the phone, became the most infamous text message case in history. Hours later, Conrad Roy was dead. When Conrad was found, his family was shattered. They had known of his struggles, but never imagined Michelle's role. For months, Michelle acted as the grieving girlfriend, telling friends and posting on social media about how much she missed him. She organized events in his honor, positioning herself as the face of tragedy. But behind the scenes, her texts told a very different story. Investigators would soon uncover thousands of messages, revealing a disturbing narrative that contradicted Michelle's public image. The grieving girlfriend was, in fact, the one who had pushed him into the grave. Police began to suspect Michelle after noticing the sheer volume of her communications with Conrad before his death. Digital forensics revealed over 60,000 messages exchanged between them, many of them urging Conrad to end his life. Detectives focused on the texts sent the night of his death, especially the moment Michelle admitted to a friend that she told Conrad to get back in the truck. That confession was the turning point. The digital trail became their strongest evidence, turning a case of suicide into a case of involuntary manslaughter. In 2017, Michelle Carter stood trial for involuntary manslaughter. The courtroom was divided. Was she a manipulative predator, or simply a troubled teen caught in a tragic situation? The prosecution painted her as cold, obsessed with attention, willing to sacrifice Conrad's life for sympathy. The defense argued that Conrad made his own choice, and Michelle's words were not a physical weapon, but the judge disagreed. He found that her actions, her encouragement, her final command to return to the truck directly, caused Conrad's death. Michelle Carter was sentenced to 15 months in jail, a sentence that sparked national debate about morality, responsibility, and the power of words. Why would a young woman push someone she claimed to love toward death? Psychologists suggest Michelle exhibited traits of dependent personality disorder and deep-seated insecurity. Her need for validation overrode empathy, making Conrad's death a tool for her social image. She inserted herself into tragedy because tragedy gave her attention. For Conrad, who was already vulnerable, Michelle became both a mirror of his pain and the voice that convinced him he had no escape. Their relationship was not built on love, it was built on desperation, control, and a toxic bond that ended in irreversible loss. Conrad Roy's death forced America to ask a haunting question: can words kill? In this case, the court said yes. The final text was not just a message, it was a push, a command, and ultimately, the difference between life and death. Conrad's family continues to grieve a life cut short, while Michelle Carter's story stands as a chilling reminder of the power of influence and the dangers of digital manipulation. In the end, the final text is not only about a crime, it is about the devastating cost of silence, persuasion, and the human need to be seen, no matter the price.